am so excited about today. I actually don't know where the idea for this dropped in, but I love doing workshops. Last year, I had a series of workshops that I did in person at my co-working space. The ultimate email relationship. It just made me feel almost in a way selfish because of how good I felt after. And then everyone was like, this is incredible. Thank you so much. And as I have been going through cleaning up my Canva, it's made me see the amount of workshops that I've run since starting this business, basically. I wanted to kind of bring some out from the archives, which is why it's called the Professional Babe Archives, and teach to you all. And we've got 9 in total, and then something really exciting happening after that. And I just honestly can't wait. I've been in business. If you are really new to me, hi, hello, I'm Peter from Professional Babe. I've been in business since 2009, actually 2008. And it started with a Pilates studio. Yes, people paid to be in that upper left-hand location. I expanded my Pilates business into a brand. And then I've done quite a few things since then. I think now I have the best job in the world because, you're great at what you do. I get you paid for being exceptional at what you do. And this I felt like was such a fitting workshop. I ran this originally in 2022 after I feel that people were just getting a little bit overwhelmed with reels and feeling like that all of a sudden they started to abandon their creativity and they would listen to other people based on what other people were doing. They were like, well, they're doing well. They must kind of have the cookie. Let me go and do that. And then they started to kind of have a business that didn't really feel like that it was a true expression of them. But are we excited? Are we ready? Are we ready? Yeah? Okay, look, I can only see Lee's face on the screen and she's smiling. So she is the spokesperson for all of you that you are all ready. Let me know in the chat if you've seen this movie. Have we seen it? Some of you are going to be like, how am I meant to know the movie by the still? I first found this movie in, when was it? 2019. This is going to sound really dramatic and I promise that it's not. It's just probably my delivery around it. I was going through a really hard time when I saw this. I had a potential defamation lawsuit with a media company about an old article that I wrote. So trust me, if you want to go viral, just take my advice. This had gone bad viral though. It had entered the men going their own way Reddit threads, basically. I remember seeing this still. And I declared on Instagram, I remember this so clearly. I was going to actually teach. I was still teaching Pilates in Melbourne at that stage. I'm pretty sure it was a Wednesday. And I was hating life. Going through this almost legal battle was not fun. And I had declared, I was like, I need to watch this movie immediately because I think this would cure my depression. And I think people think that I was joking, but it did. I watched it and for some reason for me, it felt like that life was black and white. And when I saw this movie, everything came into color. And it is The Love Witch. It is cinematically beautiful. It was designed by a woman called Annabella. And she wrote it, she directed it, she produced it, she did some of the music, she did the costumes, she did the sets. It is exceptional. And although this looks like that this would be, a late 60s film, this was actually shot in 2016. And what's really interesting is because I feel this has such distinct visuals, anytime I open Instagram, it's interesting that people, and even on TikTok when this comes up, people see this and they immediately have to know where it's from. And for me, what had happened from this, it started an obsession with so many things that I love today, which is Euro cinema, cinema from the late 60s. And some of the music, they use Ennio Morricone, which I'm obsessed with now. And this was such a really pivotal point in time. And it's so interesting because we can probably think about people that we follow as well, businesses and brands, where it's if we have a timeline of our life, and I know this is going to sound dramatic, but we have a timeline of our life and we can almost pinpoint the day that we discovered the thing and when everything became so much different. And this for you may even be someone that you had followed online or you found a podcast and you're like, oh my gosh, I remember when I found that. And how it's really interesting that what often happens is you don't just look forward at what all of the person does. Of quite often you will kind of turn around and you'll look back at all of the work that they have done. You'll look back at their existing body of work and you'll binge that. And you may even have this with yourself and your brand where people will come out of the woodwork and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I have just reread your book, or I've gone and listened to every episode of your podcast, or I've just like gone through and I've binged your whole Instagram feed. And as someone that has a podcast now, let me tell you, when this happens and when people say this, it is just the best feeling in the world. So if you are yet to feel that, I'm hoping that today I can give you a framework, or at least have you feeling inspired creatively so that you can do this within your business. And if you are feeling like this is already happening, great, let's keep the momentum up. You know, as I said, I didn't just watch the movie when I found the Love Witch. I became an immediate fan from this one image. And this is something that I feel that all of us, if we are highly skilled at what we do, this should be available to us. You know, if we have been in business for a while, we have been like perfecting our craft, there is no reason for us to not have this, right? It's like if we are showing up on Instagram or wherever we're choosing to show up with our content, this is something that 100% should be available to us. And like, let me know if you feel like this is happening now or if it's not happening for you. I think the problem is, and something that I am seeing, and why, again, I felt inspired to kick off with this. When I look at content, I don't see this happening for a lot of people. And I know some people that are so exceptional at what they do. And I don't think that everything that you put out can be a work of art. It'd be exhausting. It's like we're not full-time content creators. You know, we are doing content that obviously supports our paid work. But I know some people and I'm like, you are so exceptional at what you do, but I do not think that what you put out there is a representation of how exceptional you are at what you do. Something that I think happens is that because we know that we are truly gifted, I feel that there is then sometimes like a self-abandoning where it's like, I am great at what I do. And I know that when I am discovered, people will be like, where has this person been hiding my whole life? And I think because of that, what then we do is there is this like natural, almost like self-abandoning of, here's what I think that I should do because someone told me I should do this. So I'm going to go and follow that. And then what starts to happen is over time, this starts to like erode at us because we feel like that we're doing all of the right things and we feel like that we're showing up and we're listening to the experts and we kind of are doing stuff. It's like we're wearing clothes or a style that just doesn't feel like us and it's just not working. And then what happens, unfortunately, I see this all the time, is that people that are so great at what they do start to be like, do I even want to do this anymore? And I think that this comes from not the work that they actually do, but the fact that I think that we can almost like not even see how much work and mental energy goes into content creation, is that because we don't feel like valued or supported or like that work is being soaked up, it's kind of like we're not really getting the validation when we know that we're really good. And this was something I've gone through a couple times when I have put my genius outside of myself into someone who's like, you should do this. And then I do it and it feels yucky. And then when you do it and it feels yucky, and then you spend all this time doing it because you think about it, if this is not natural to you, it's going to take a little bit longer because you're probably not going to be in flow. And then what happens is you put it out there, it doesn't feel like you, and you're met with silence. And you're like, oh my God, shit, I knew this was bad. And then you start to second guess everything because you're like, if I can't make this work doing it this way and this person can't make it work, can I even do this? And we just need to fuck that off. You know, for me and business, I am not in a place where I will ever guarantee anyone an overnight success. I will guarantee lasting success. And this is where, for me, I would rather you truly enjoy the content you put out there, wherever it is, even your offers. And if it takes a little bit longer, but you are truly like, you love the process, if it takes you a year longer, but you love it, you are going to stay in this business so much longer because the thing is, you are actually building your business from this place of deep satisfaction and not, I have to do this to get to this point. And you see this a lot in online business where people reach the peak of success, they make their $1 million and they're like, I wanted to burn my business down. And I'm like, but you only did that because you were building in a way that you thought that you should and not a way that was like a deep expression. And I hate that. I really, really hate that. I think, and I see this a lot on TikTok, anyone that is chronically online on TikTok probably will see the same, is that you will see someone that has like a really unique style. And all of a sudden, it's like overnight, they just go viral. Everyone knows about them. They get like 1 million followers overnight, whatever it is. And what then happens is people are like, oh my gosh, they've just gone like super viral. What are they doing? And what we do is instead of thinking about what the reality of the situation actually looks like, the fact that they've probably been doing this for a while, that this is something that is an extension of them, that's why it feels like on brand for them, is that we think that we must do that because that worked for them. And there are a lot of older business coaches that say, you know, if you want to be successful, follow in someone's footsteps. And I think that we've kind of taken that sometimes a little bit next level where they're like, oh, okay, they're doing long form content. I should do long form content. But we would be better doing something short and snappy because like that is our strength, where they're going to be really good talking in front of the camera for like 30 minutes, right? And I think what we can forget is anytime someone goes viral, they go viral because they're them. It is not usually about what they're doing. And yes, there could be elements like the content is beautifully shot, or they've got a really good series, or they're really interesting. But why they go viral is because they are them. And what we need to remember is when we go viral, it is because we are being us, okay? We don't want to go viral with someone else's formula where we are a faded photocopy, because imagine how you're going to feel when someone's like, oh, so-and-so did this first. And then all of a sudden, it's like someone's trying to kick the chair out from underneath of you. Like, I don't want that from any of you. I spent the last few months in pause mode and was about to relaunch an offer service. Oh, you are so good at that, but the energy was not aligned. A bit crude, but I always say it's like you could be fantastic at giving hand jobs, but you don't want to build a business out of them. Like you might want to, but you could be really exceptional. You are like the wristy queen that you are known in your circle as. And this is where I think when you are a multi-passionate entrepreneur, when you've also been doing this a long time, which Lee, I know that you have, when you have been doing your work for such a long time, you are of course going to be great at multiple things. And we're getting a bit off topic here, but I have to say this because it's just coming through. I think this is why people say that you have to really specifically niche down. And I'm like, well, of course you have to niche down. You're good at one thing because you've been doing this for 3 months. What happens when you've been doing this for such a long time? You're going to be great at a lot. And this is where then there has to be like a level of discernment of, okay, well, cool. What is this next stage going to be for me? Because when you are really good at a lot of things, which I know you are, this is where you get to decide what that looks like. One of the biggest boundaries I tell my clients that they have to have is just because you can do something does not mean that you should do it. And the hardest thing, especially if you work with clients, is that you'll see them need something and you'll want to, because you know that you can do it. You're like, I'll just do that. I'll just go do that for you. And we don't want to ever fall into a trap with that. And this is where I kind of see content and offers under the same banner, because the content that you are putting out there, like this, for example, is content. But it's really, I see this as an offer because although you're not paying me for this, you are actually paying with your attention. You could be doing something else, but you are not. And attention does have a dollar value. So I want to make sure that when I'm doing anything in my business, that it feels like it's me. So if I ever have a week and we have not earned a lot of money, or I've really just had some shit thrown at me, I can look at the rest of my week and I'm like, I was really me this week. This felt really good. This felt really good to do. And we want to make sure that we are doing that. So I believe that your content should not be a bid for attention. And you'll see this a lot where you can do this right now. Like if you've got your phone in your hand, you can open wherever you are posting. Maybe it's your podcast or Instagram or LinkedIn, wherever, and you want to get really like honest with yourself. And I can see where I have done this, where it's like, what content have I created because it's a bid for attention, where it's me trying to do this like rage bait, where it's like you don't really want rage bait followers, because people that kind of will follow you with a particular energy, that will stay there. If they think that you're going to be this like drama causing bitch, guess what? They're going to bring the drama. And when you're not wanting to post drama, they're going to be like, and you're like, why is everyone like this? Because you're a drama causing bitch, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if you are constantly doing stuff to go viral, you're like, let me just post to be seen. And then you get an audience. What are you going to talk about? And I see this a lot with a lot of the people that we love in business, like Brene Brown, or I don't know who else is coming to mind. Isn't it funny when you're like, Denise Duffield Thomas is one who I think is exceptional. She's been doing this for such a long time. She's built an incredible business. Denise has such a solid body of work under her. And I think a lot of the work that she has done has also been formulated by the content that she's put out there, which, when you are doing content that is promoting the work that you do, you will also find that you will not grow, but for me, I refine so much of how I say things when I have to talk about something in something very short form. I have to learn how to be succinct and punchier. And because of that, you can put her on a stage and she could talk about anything because she has been building up her body of work and building that up through her content. And the problem is, if you are posting to be seen, but you are not really talking about what you do and giving it a chance for you to be like, let me refine my method more, or let me talk about it from this angle. The problem is then this is where people will get a platform and they don't know what to do with them. It's like getting a really sexy girl in your bed and you don't know what to do. Like, you've been talking a big fucking game. That's bids for attention. And then she's there and you're like, well, shit. You want to be good at what you do. Okay. Nextly, I think that we all should be a sexy little tastemaker. Now, if you want some content on this, if you actually go to my YouTube channel, and I will hopefully remember to flick this through, back in September, October, I recorded a workshop called Tastemaker DNA. Watch that. It is incredible. Something about when we follow trends, we adapt to what is happening. We look at, well, this is what is happening right now, so let me go and do that. Compared to the people that create the trends, which are the tastemakers, that people stop and they see and they're like, oh my God, I love that. What you need to be really conscious with, though, is when you decide that you want to be a tastemaker, you sometimes will be misunderstood because there is a chance that you are doing things that people aren't really used to, or maybe they're like, oh, I'm not really sure about this, but I'm very, very curious about you. And you can see this if you go back through your feed, or if you look at someone that responds to trends, you will actually see their whole business change. This is very interesting. You'll see this a lot now with AI. How many people do you know that have just done a hard swing into AI? And I'm not just talking about, here's how we can use AI to do the thing that we've always done, but now how they're like, I am AI. And this comes, I believe, from content where people are like, well, this is trending, so let me do that. And you can see this reflect within their body of work. Anytime a trend or something big happens and they try to jump on that, let me just jump on that because that's going to make me famous. And the problem is then you are spending a lot of time being busy, where if you just would have stayed true to yourself this whole time and done something consistently that, of course, matures over the course of 3 years, you would have exploded a lot sooner than feeling like that you're kind of continually jumping ship. Now, another thing I love, and this is going to be really big for the service providers in here, has anyone ever felt like that when you go, if a client comes to you, that they're either like, oh, it's between you and someone else. I'm talking to someone else tomorrow. I'm talking to someone else this afternoon. Or you know that you have a call with them and then you see them go and you work with someone else. Has anyone had that? You don't have to say it, but you can think it. You're like, yes, I've had that. I've had that. And it does not feel good because all of a sudden I am deeply aware of the fact that, oh, I'm between another business coach and I don't want that. For me, I want to be the only option because I want to be chosen from my perspective because only I can offer that. There can be 60,000 business coaches and consultants in the world, but there is only one me. And this is where when you start to create from you and your perspective, people can't compete with that. No one can say, oh, we're going to go with this person because they're cheaper, because they're not you. Do you know what I mean? If they say that, they know they're making a trade-off because they're not getting you. But if you can master this, this will serve you'll notice this in your business so well. Now, another thing I believe is that virality should not slide off, it should stick. So just imagine we throw something at the wall and it just spaghetti and it's just sliding down the wall. This is what happens a lot of the time when people get a TikTok or something finally goes viral. Finally, slides down the wall. Why? Because all of their other content is stuff that has been done in the hope to go viral. It's been a trending audio that no one wants to listen to. And you think about it, if you are spending hours a week creating content, now has like a short shelf life. It's like a Snapchat. It's like you're spending all this time on oh my God, can't even speak. Snapchat stuff isn't going to save. What we want you to be Julia Fox with your Kanye moment. I love Julia Fox. She's an icon. If you want a good book recommendation, I recommend hers. And a lot of people think that Kanye like discovered her. Oh no, she was fully formed. Like she had a fashion label. She'd done all this art. She had a book. She had all of this stuff and she knew who she was before she met Kanye. So when she was with Kanye and she was like thrust out in there, the reason that she stayed and why her brand grew even more is because she had an exceptional body of work that people were like, this person is very interesting. And that's what we want for you. We don't want you to be discovered and then all of a sudden forgotten. We want your brand to really stick. And if you see it like this, imagine if all of the stuff that you are putting out there, it was really deeply valuable or an extension of you. It wasn't created from a trend. When you are discovered and the right people find you, not everyone is going to keep following you, but they'll go back and they will look through the archives of you because they'll be like, oh my gosh, this person is so deeply interesting. I love what they've said about this. And that's what we want. All right. So you could be really like honest with yourself right now. If we were to like fast forward like 5 years, we're in the future. How old will I be? I'll be approaching 41. How fun. I'm 41 and I look back on the work that I'm doing now. Do I feel like this has been like a really good expression or a point in time? Or am I going to look back and feel like that I spent a whole year trying to be someone else and not be myself? This is what I want you to think about, where it's like your entrepreneurial timeline is happening right now. This is not a dress rehearsal. We are not marking through. We are on stage performing right now. And because of that, it's like, I don't want anyone to ever feel like the time is running out. But, I think it was Haley Carr said something where it was 90 days is 1% of 25 years. And that just smacked the hell out of me because I realized that in 25 years, I probably wouldn't have this business. I'll be retired. And how significant these 3-month chunks are. And it's fine if I want to waste them. But if I do a whole year of feeling like that I'm not myself, that's 4% of my entrepreneurial timeline. And given the fact that most businesses do not withstand 3 years, that's a big, big, big chunk. So what we want to make sure is that the work that we're doing now counts. And even if we feel like it's a little bit slow, how good is it going to feel that when you are discovered, people go back through your feed and like a stalker, they are like binging all of the content that you put out there, okay? And I think that can be something that you can do. So what we want to think about is that anytime we're putting out our free events, podcast episodes, our emails, stuff on LinkedIn, wherever we are, don't feel that you have to do that to then get to this point so then you can then be you. So it's like, I just have to get to 100K followers and then I can start being me. Because the problem is then, and you see this again in the comments, oh my God, they've changed. Oh, I don't like this. This just doesn't feel good. We don't want that because then this is where you feel unstable. What we want to see is that everything that we're doing is together. So if you know who you want to be, if you have a really clear picture in your head for the kind of entrepreneur, business owner, you're like, I know who I want to be. And even if this feels like 1,000 miles away, I know who I want to be. It's really important that you start becoming them now and you start talking about the things now. Because if we can imagine imagine someone has been following you in the bushes with a camera and they are doing like a little art exhibition of you and your business. If you've ever been like, I love art. I remember the Jeffrey Smart exhibition and you walk through and you basically see his whole body of work evolving of when he started to where he ended up and how his work just changed so much. So imagine that someone is following you around with a camera and they're taking all of these snapshots and screenshots and they're writing stuff down. So, if your feed was your resume, would you be happy with your career path? If the podcast episodes, the emails, everything that you're putting out there was in your little exhibition of you, would you be happy with that? Would you proudly stand behind that? Even if it's a bit cringy and you're like, oh, I can't believe I did that, I said that. But if you can proudly stand behind that, incredible. What we don't want though is for you to look at something and be like, that's not my content. I didn't say that. because that week you were trying to be someone else because you thought that that would work really well. You know, we can look at anyone that has a TED Talk. TED Talks are great examples. The reason that this does so well for them is because, and it sounds wanky, they are creating from their truth. When we create from this point, our truth, it has no expiry. It is timeless. And the first time I actually ran this workshop, it was called Timeless. But this is where if you want to work smarter and more efficiently with your content, and you don't want to feel like that you are spending hours and hours and hours and hours a week on this, your perspective is going to most likely be timeless. How you do things is timeless. Stuff that has formed, like markers in time that have formed part of your entrepreneurial journey, especially if you're in the B2B space, or especially if you have a founder's story where you're like, I started my business for this reason. That's timeless. You think about it. I can talk about my Pilates studio. That's not going to date. It's not going to be the kind of thing where people are like, I don't want to hear about that anymore. Oh my God, get that away from me. Because it's been something that I have lived through. It's not a trend like the Barbie AI trend, which I was obsessed with. I'm pretty sure my client, Brooke, started it. But, you know, that was a moment in time. It's not like that you can like keep doing these Barbies like a month from now or even now, because people will be like, oh, I don't want to see it again. So if you feel like that a lot of the stuff, if you ever go to repurpose and you're like, I can't actually reuse anything that I'm doing, this is where I would get you to look at, and we're going to do that in the second part of this call, you know, who you are and how you do it, because the more that you can lean in and bring that into what you do, again, that's something that no one else can latch onto because that's you and that's your story, okay? So what I want you to think about is like, you know exactly what to post. You know exactly like what you should do to be discovered because you do this every day. The hard thing is it's like a pane of glass and it's pressed up against your nose. You can't see it because it's so close to your face. So what we're going to do, as always, I've got a little Notion sheet if you want to work through this with me. Alternatively, I'm going to have the answers on screen. And I'm going to say this too. Writing was something that never came naturally to me. I've really had to work at this. And where I was getting muddled is I was like muddling processes. So what I mean by this is when you think about content and then what you want to do, don't think I need to do a carousel. I need to do this. Fuck that off for a second, right? Think of the idea and flesh that out. Because when you do this, this is where you'll be like, oh shit, this is amazing. Oh my God, I've got so much that I can talk about. And when you unpack that, you'll find that that could be a course. That could be like your TED Talk. It could be a book. You will be really surprised at the content that's hiding in there. So just forget for the minute as we go through this about how this is going to look. And what we're going to do is we are just going to think about the ideas and you are just going to answer some questions, okay? What we're going to think about now is we're going to go for 3 at least on each. And I'm going to have to do the hard task of being quiet while you write. And what you're going to answer are these 3 questions. I'll give you some examples. So what makes your approach distinctive from others in your field, even if they offer similar services? So for me, and this is so funny, is that I've actually had a business before I started teaching people about having a business. I've also had a bricks and mortar business and I've done network marketing. And, you know, we had stockists for the DVD. So I've had a product. So I've had a variety of different experiences. What makes my approach also distinctive is I feel like that I don't really give like business consultant. I feel like I give reality TV star that should have probably been on like Survivor, maybe not Survivor. Why did I say that? Maybe like Love Island or The Bachelor, and somehow I'm a consultant. There's an example. The next one, complete. While others in my industry focus on X, I believe the most important thing is why. While everyone else is focusing on making money right now, I believe that people should be focusing on their standards. While other people in my industry focus on, you know, what is trending, I believe that we should create a body of work that is our deepest expression. While other people in my industry focus on how to create another course, I believe that we should look at what we're selling and make that profitable. So you can see here how, like, even just these, like how I'm answering this right now, you're going to be able to do this. What I want you to do though, and this is going to be hard for a few of you, is you're going to overthink it. You're going to be like, shit. Let the shit ideas come out because good ideas stay hidden if you react to everything that comes up like that's a piece of garbage. You're going to have this sexy little idea of it's just hiding in the corner. It's like, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to get yelled at. Don't yell at me. So get the shit out. Even if it's terrible, no one has to see this. I don't have to see it. You don't have to put this anywhere. And then the last one, what is true for you right now that you have been hesitant to say out loud? Remember, this does not have to go anywhere, but this is about your creative juices flowing. So I want you to come up with 3 for each, if you can, which I know you can do more. And let's spend, do you want 2 minutes? And then I'll check in. So what I want you to think about, and anything that you feel stuck on, you're probably not going to be able to answer all of these right now as we go through them because we've got 4 slides. But I want you to think about this as like a jumping off point for what you're going to think about as you go through the week. As you finish your workday every day this week and maybe next week, just go back through and revisit these questions. And there is going to be stuff that comes up. Catch that. Write that down. Because that is your unique perspective that comes from I think this is the next one, your authority, okay? So everything that you think about comes from the fact that you are deeply skilled in the work that you do. So now from here, we're going to answer these questions. Again, go for 3 for each. If you want to push yourself, go for 5. What pivotal experiences or moments shape your expertise / what you do? If you are e-com as well, I will say this can sometimes be a bit tricky if you have created a product where there's not really a strong founder's story, but you have created something because there's been a gap in the market where you're like, no one's selling this, let me sell this. Or like you have, as Cody Sanchez says, like a boring business. So if that's you, just provide a little context in the chat and I can give you some ideas. Sorry if I'm moving around a bit. My chair's a little bit low and I keep smacking my leg into something. What questions do you get asked most frequently? I don't think I wrote that right. That's okay. What is future successful you talking about? And then what do you want to be known for? So pivotal moments or experiences that shape what you do. I created a business in a regional town and I sold it. I have started and stopped a lot of things. I've made success with a course without having to kind of spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars in ads. The questions that I get asked most frequently are, how do you make money online? Or how can you have a successful business? Or how can I have a successful business without a huge team? And then what you'll find from here, these are jumping off points for what happens next. So, if we stick with that second one, what are the questions you most get asked frequently about? Like, how do you run a business or how do you charge what you charge? You think about that. If that's a question that I get asked, you can imagine this like a little mind map of all the little things that could come off. And it's like, well, I charge what I charge because I have really high standards about the work that I do. And I charge what I charge because I know that I can back up a transformation. And then the same thing, you'll find that these little stuff will kind of spiderweb off it. And in that, is your content. So you can see here how if we try to put ourselves in a box where it's like, let me create a carousel on this, we're not really going deep because we're responding to the content piece. We're not responding to what we actually could create and how big these questions can be and how when we go deep in this, it can reveal a lot of stuff for us. So what is future successful you talking about? For me, probably more of the same shit. I'm probably talking more about standards and how if you don't like parts of your life, create a standard in that. I think I'm doing that at the moment. What do I want to be known for? Like good, sexy, hot business advice. I want people to be like, this is hot. It's editorial. I know that I can come. She's going to make me feel better. She's going to change my business. Okay. Don't put too much pressure on getting this right. Let's spend this time. Why don't we do 3 minutes? The question I get asked the most is how much are sessions? You brought up a really good point. So thank you for bringing this up. Is that I think sometimes when showing up or we're doing things in a certain way, it doesn't get people to then think in a different way. So if we are not challenging someone's perspective or revealing to them a new possibility for their future, they're also going to be stuck in their pattern, right? So it's like if we're stuck in our pattern, or they're stuck in their pattern, neither of us are kind of being disrupted. So if you find that stuff that's happening with your clients is feeling a bit stagnant. This is where you will find that as you start to do your stuff differently with your content, you're going to get a completely different response. Like the out of pocket stuff that people message me about is quite entertaining compared to, I think, when I first started, and I was the same as you, Karen. People would be like, how much are sessions? And then what I started to do is I created a Pilates DVD, and it was I can get you into your splits in 15 minutes a day. You make a claim like that and people automatically stop asking you about stuff that they can find on your website, and they start asking you about different things, and they'll reveal stuff to you. So if you feel that your audience is kind of in a, how would I say it? They're not giving you a lot, right? And you're finding this really hard. If you change then what you give and you show up differently, you will find that you will see this reflected with what people ask. And this could be something fun for you to try this week, Karen, is pick out some like little ideas that you want to expand on. And if you create from that, I would love to know kind of like what people say in response to that. And maybe you've done this before where you have taken a leap of faith and you've written something that you're like, oh my God, this is just going to bust out of me. I have to say this. And you are really surprised with like how the comments and the messages that you actually get. So I think that could happen for quite a few of you as well, especially if you feel like that you've been a bit stuck with some things. So I hope that helps with that. Okay, now this is where we get to transform our lived experience into intellectual property. It sounds very formal, doesn't it? So this is going to be one, especially if you feel like that you've been doing what you've been doing for a very long time. What's a concept you explain in a way that makes people say, I've never thought about it like that before? One for me is segmentation. And I talk about it how if you go and bang a guy in the toilets, you're not going to go and tell your mom. You're going to give an altered story to everyone because it's relevant to them. That is an example of segmentation. This is where, and I think if you are in the fitness industry or the health industry, you're probably going to have lots of little different cues or what's it called when you relate it to something else? Why can't I've lost the word. But you'll relate it to something else. Analogy, thank you so much. You'll have all of these analogies worked out. This is where I want you to think about all of the analogies that you give. Because when you have an analogy, that shows a deep understanding. Because you're not just teaching and talking about what you do. You have such a level of understanding where you are relating it back to something else. It's like how the smartest people in the room can explain a concept to anyone and have them understanding. And how if people can simplify very in-depth concepts, it just goes to show their expertise. Now, what recurring theme runs through your most successful projects or client transformations? What you can do here for this is if you feel that you're not sure for this one, this is where it's really good for you to have a testimonial or a feedback form and do this with everyone. Ask them questions. So I will do like a little, an informal debrief with clients where I'll just message them after, like if I've had quite a few strategy sessions recently, and I'll just check in about how you're going, or they'll check in with me and we'll have a little chat. And this also is helpful for me because I can then see what they respond to, okay? So if you don't have anything for this second one, this may be you then looking at the processes that you have within your business and getting information from these people. And then the last one, what's a process that you've naturally refined over time that gets consistent results? What I want to say as well is I went through this period probably within a year after releasing GGE, that 1 to 2 year marks. When was that? Like 2021 to 2023, where unfortunately I was continually copied. And because a lot of my methodology was behind a paywall, people were taking stuff out of the course and they were putting it online as their own work, or they would learn from me and then they would go and they would teach this as their own stuff. And this was painful as fuck when I would lose clients to my clients that were teaching my work and then would have to come and ask me what to do with this client. And this is where I then had to let go of the fact that I was going to have to teach my best work for free. And this is why I started a podcast, because I'm like, I can't keep everything I do behind a paywall, because the problem is if someone works with me and their life is transformed, if they teach that as their own, people see that and they assume that it's that person's methodology. So what you want to think about here is like, what is the work that you do that consistently gets good results? If you are yet to start your business, this is also where you can think about like you as a person. So if you have been like, if you haven't sold anything yet because you're in the startup phase or you're changing what you're doing, you can think about who are you as a person? And like, maybe you're like, oh, people just love that I'm a really great listener, or that I can just make them feel, if they're having the worst day, I can make them feel incredible. And I do that by this. So think about elements of you if you don't yet have a process or if you haven't sold. And again, these are going to be probably some thinking questions. So why don't we do 4 minutes for this? I was just checking my emails then. And it's so funny because this relates to what we're doing now. I've been waiting on a package coming from the US that has basically gone across the whole globe. I think it's had like 60 different touch points, and I think that it's just downstairs at reception. And where this is really interesting is I've purchased some original movie stills from one of my favorite films, and it's from 1967. So if you ever want to feel like that your content has an expiry, could you imagine the person that made this film in 1967 thinking in the year 2025 that people would be purchasing film stills that they sent to like the newspaper? So ideally, like we want, maybe not, our work is not going to extend that far, but what we want is we just want to think that if it's good work, it doesn't matter if someone discovers us 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that we want to ensure that we are putting our genius into something that is going to outlive the time that we're working on it. We're really creating our legacy within our content. You know, that is why I created my podcast. That is why people write books. That is why people create music and they write songs and poems. So our last one is now we create a gravitational pull. Who are you most energized to serve? Why? Think about as well, you don't have to have this audience, or you may have one of them. It doesn't need to be who you're serving currently, but who do you feel really excited about to serve? If someone came into you, or you were just like had to write down a list of the dream people, who are they? Maybe it's like really, you've got really clear attributes, or maybe it's like a demographic, whatever it is. And then what emotions do you want your audience to feel when engaging with your content? Write some words. This can be something where it's like, oh, I want them to feel this, or I want them to do this. Like, get really, really clear on that. For me, who am I most energized to serve? I love when I work with people that are just ready to do the fucking work. Oh my gosh, I love that. I get really excited when I have a client and they are like, I listened to your podcast and I just did everything that you told me to do, and I've done it immediately. And they listen and they're coachable. And it's really interesting that I had this point where, you know, I was working with a lot of people going into their next stage of growth. And then I worked out, because I thought in my head, oh, these people are going to have to go through the stuff. Not always. Sometimes those segments have the most fucking baggage to deal with. And I have recently this year been working with more startups than I ever have. And they are just so excited. And then I get excited. You know, what emotions do I want people to feel? I want people to feel that what they want is possible for them. I want them to think and believe that when they see something, that they know that they can have that. So they feel excited. They feel hopeful. They feel like just really like lit up, and they just want to like bite into it. They're ready to get stuck into it. And then lastly, if someone described your content without mentioning your name, how would they know that it's yours? What is unmistakably you? I don't know if I spelt that right. What elements, what sounds, what colors? So this is where I want you to think about, like, how would someone describe what you do or know that something is you if your name or your face wasn't on it? I find this, and really, like, it is the most high praise when I share something by like a fashion house or a magazine on my stories, and someone says, I knew that you would post that. I didn't even need to look at who posted it. I knew that it was you. Get really clear on like what those elements are. If you're like, that's never happened to me, guess what? It'll probably happen to you this week. And maybe this is going to be more of a call to action for you to share things. But like, when people think about you, what are they saying? Now, you may find, especially if you're feeling in a rut, what you can do is you can do this in like 2 columns. You can write currently what's happening. Even if you're like, oh, it's a fucking bin fire, they would probably be like, oh, they're going to know it's me because I've got 50 different Canva templates and none of them match. That's okay. Then you can write down what you wish. So you can write down currently what's happening and then what you wish would happen. And let's spend about 3 to 4 minutes on this. I did post a podcast episode. And if you're not really a podcast person because you prefer to watch, I've started putting them on YouTube. And it's one of the latest episodes. I think it was Thursday last week, and it was around becoming your own creative director of your brand. And one of the comments that I said in that, and this is why I'm saying this, Kim, is I said, what you want to do when you think about, and this was specifically around shoots, is you want to start to put things that are uniquely you. You know, oftentimes when people do a branding shoot, they'll be holding books or a laptop against a nice wall. But what we want to think about when we think about shoots are elements that are us, that can only be us. So what you can think about here, and maybe you want to ask this on your stories where you're like, when you think about me, what do you think about? Like, Kim, I know you quite well. So I love that. Like, if you were talking about health concepts and you had like cute little duck, I think people would they would be magnetized by, one, your absolute hotness, and two, the duck. And then they would stay for everything else that you said as well. I think that would do really well. And what you can think about here is you can be like, what makes stuff deeply me? What is that? What is deeply me? One thing for me is I always usually have my sunglasses. I wear them all the time. I wear them indoors. And that's why so much of my content is just like chaotic sunglasses. Rachel says that was a brilliant podcast. Highly recommend. Thank you. Kim, scientific nerdy updates with a side of quackers. Obsessed. And this is what you can think about with your content around you have your unique perspective. So this is the lens that you can talk about things through that is going to set you apart. No one can emulate that. They absolutely cannot, because this is you. This is like your lived experience. This is your take. This is your perspective. This is also if you want to start to do more thought leadership content where you are just like yapping about particular stuff within your industry. Then we go across to your authority position. So your experience and knowledge that establishes your expertise. This here is especially important because if you were to go back 10 years in time, if someone had a business online, people were like, they're credible because it was hard to do and websites were expensive and everything was expensive. And it was, I think, sometimes harder to fake things when now you can start a business this afternoon. It's really easy to throw stuff together. So we need to remember that. And if you've been doing this for a while, if you have amazing client results, you've got an incredible story, this is where lean into this, okay? Because a lot of people don't have this. If everyone is doing the same thing and they've just started, congratulations, because now you get to come and sweep it and say something. You know, Kim on this call, she is a wonderful doctor of Chinese medicine. She's got multiple different qualifications. And one of the challenges that we've had is marketing with APRA, because with APRA, you're not allowed to use testimonials. And I think this was a few years ago when Kim had an incredible course called Supercharge Your Fertility, which I'm pretty sure you can still buy. And we were talking about, well, how do you promote a course where you can't use testimonials but other people use testimonials? And we had this thing where it's like, you know, a lot of people weren't doing APRA compliant marketing. And I said, all you need to do is get that beautiful face of yours and stand in front of your qualifications, take a picture and say, you won't find any testimonials here because my qualification is so high that we're not allowed to use them. And I said, automatically, anytime people see a testimonial, they'll just assume that your competitors aren't qualified, but you are. So this is where you can do some really fun things with how you're actually showing up in the kind of content that you're doing. Then your intellectual property, your frameworks, your methodologies, the stuff that you do with your clients. When I first started my consultancy, after every client call, I would write a recap for myself on what I actually did with them. And then this started to form the content that I put out there. Because again, when you're in flow, it's going to be that it's pushed up to your face. You're not going to be able to see what you do. You also probably here could use AI. And if you've got call transcripts, you could feed them into AI and be like, what concepts am I teaching? Or from what you're reading from our transcript, what can you pull out that is my framework or my methodology or my intellectual property, and get that reflected back to you? You may be really surprised what comes up. And then lastly, the gravitational pull. So what aspects are our authentic voice or our brand that are going to attract people? Like, what does that look like? You know, we had the beautiful example in the chat of Kim with her duck content. And I love that. Even though the duck content is yet to exist, I think that this is going to go really well. And like, we're all going to do stuff that people love. For me, people have said that they love that I do stuff that's very editorial. It's not this like clusterfuck of shit that you come to expect within this industry. They're like, I love how this looks. And that's what pulls people in. For you, it could be your delivery around something. It could be your branding. There's like lots of different stuff. And what I want you to think about as well, what time is it? What I want you to think about as well is, like, if you're ever stuck, just come back to this, or come back to everything that you've kind of done, and have that as like a jumping off point. So what I mean by that is, like, if we go back to one of these questions, like, what's a concept that you explain in a way that people blah, blah, blah. If we're talking about segmentation, stay with that and kind of unpack it. And this is where I will regularly have conversations with myself. And I'm like, why is that important? Okay, well, how would I say that? Okay, what would I do here? And you may find that you've got a number of different content pieces. This could be a podcast episode. Okay, great, lengthen it out. This could be this. It could be a carousel. It could be a reel. You know, if you are someone that is really using AI in your business, you can take these concepts and you can just ask Claude or chat, hey, Claude, if I have this key concept and I want to actually expand upon this in a newsletter, a reel, a TikTok series, and a podcast episode, how could this look? Now, I'm not saying to go and record that word for word, but this can give you a jumping off point for you to be like, that's the worst fucking idea I've ever heard. I'm going to do the opposite for that. Or you could be like, oh, I love that they've said that. I'm actually going to do this. And it can give you a starting point for you then to kind of make a move on. So all of the work that we have done today, basically, if you are someone that is using AI, use it. But what I will say is, if you're not, and you just love to kind of create from your brain, let the ideas sit and then come back to them. Or if something is standing out for you right now, and maybe something has come up in this call, if it's standing out, don't question it, just go post it. I said in a client call yesterday, I said one of the biggest mistakes that we can make is the inspiration hits and we expect that it's going to stay. That does not always happen. So if you are feeling creatively inspired, just go and do that. Even if you're like, this doesn't really make too much sense with what I'm doing, that's okay. Because what you'll find is that will snowball and you'll stay. You know, when we start to create from this, when we create from like what lights us up, this is going to feel so much easier than you scrolling TikTok, looking for a trending audio, or being like, oh, I don't know what to post. What did they post? Oh, I don't know about this. I don't know about that. Because that energy will stay in your content. And this is the hard thing. Even if in that moment it does not do well, that's okay. Because sometimes the people that are in your orbit will not stay there. The people that are yet to find you, when they do, they will be like, this is life-changing. So sometimes we have to do the work first and then the people will catch up. That is an unfortunate part of business. I have felt like that. Some days I still feel like that now, where I'm like, I'm doing really good work. Where are all of the people? But I know that when that day happens, I'm not going to lose my viral moment because people are like, this bitch just does trends. You know, I've got a really solid, sturdy body of work that people, like, I've got almost 100 podcast episodes now for people to binge. And I get a report, they still go back and they listen from the start. So, you know, when we create our content from a place that is truly aligned from us, you know, we don't have to chase trends, we set them. Our work has longevity well beyond any algorithm change. It is highly, deeply repurposable as well. You know, we build a body of work that we are proud of, that we can look back and be like, oh my God, I love that. Like, I was talking about that then and now I'm talking about that now. Like, I can really see this like maturation. I don't even know if I've said that right. I can tell when we're reaching the end of a workshop because I forget how to pronounce words, but you get this like natural maturation of what you're doing. And then we attract opportunities that are aligned with our goals and who we are. You are the trend, and we get to start creating from that place today. So that is your little workshop done. I will say that this is part of a really incredible workshop series, which I'm so excited about. We have our next one next week. It's on Tuesday. And then we've got a little break. And then we've got an email foundations one, then email conversions. Assets, not hours is going to be really good. None of you would have done that because I've only actually taught that to people's community. So jot all of these down. The times for them are all 10 a.m. Melbourne time. And if you've loved this, this is, of course, going to be a really good taste of what it is like to work with me. I do have an entrepreneurial mentorship called Business Bang, where we look at creating a really good business. Like, what does that look like? There are elements that you need to master. And this is not, here's what's worked for me, do that. No, I work with a variety of clientele in a variety of different industries, but we also develop the entrepreneur. So if you want the personal development experience that is becoming a better entrepreneur, we can do that. I will say though, it is, I don't want to say I'm a bit hard on you, but if you tell me you want to do something, I will hold you to that standard. So if you are not ready for radical accountability, you may not like that, okay? But thank you so much for coming to this. Let me just stop sharing. Do we have any questions, or are we just so creatively overwhelmed? We're like, I just need to stop and fan myself. Thank you so much. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Monica. Not overwhelmed, excited, love that. Thank you, Bianca. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Well, go out there, have an incredible day. Stay in that energy. Thank you so much for being with me here today, and hopefully I'll see you all next week. Bye, everyone.